Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kompasa. So today I'm going to go through two RT articles. One is EU state slams Kiev over brutal military draft from ethnic minority. That is to say, Hungary is pissed off at the Ukrainian government for forcefully recruiting the ethnic Hungarian minority in Transcarpathia, which is in western Ukraine. The second one is private military competition, why the US is really so worried about Russia's Wagner group. Okay, and that's RT, both of them. And we've spoken before about the potential of Hungary seizing or grabbing Transcarpathia. But I mean, the Hungarian government can complain all they want right now, but Transcarpathia is a part of Ukraine. So obviously ethnic Hungarian minority men still have to do military service in Ukraine. It's the law and they're part of that country, right? So there aren't really much, they can do about it unless Hungary is willing to go to war over this matter, or as they call it, the mistreatment. I think obviously that Ukraine should go to peace negotiations and just end the conflict there, and we wouldn't have all this killing going on. And Ukraine was really close to do that back in April. I think it was April 2022, right, in Ankara. But the British fucked that up. So Budapest Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó has blasted Ukraine's conscription of Transcarpathian Hungarians. Ethnic Hungarians living in Ukraine are being enrolled in its armed forces to fight Russia, Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó has claimed. Kiev's crisis is not our war, but it hurts Hungarian people, the official stated, which is why Budapest wants it resolved swiftly. But they're still Ukrainian citizens. So they still have to abide by those laws, whether you like it or not, unfortunately. But anyway, unfortunately, peace is rarely spoken about. And those who talk about it are even stigmatized and criticized. True, that he is correct about. The top Hungarian diplomat argued, speaking on the sidelines of an open debate at the UN Security Council on Thursday. Hungarians are paying a price for it both economically and with their lives, he added. In addition to Ukrainians, Hungarians also die in this war, says Hungarians living in Transcarpathia are being conscripted into the Ukrainian army too. We've seen some footage in recent days of how brutal it sometimes is, Szijjártó told journalists. Ukraine has a significant ethnic Hungarian minority living in the region of Transcarpathia, which has long been the focus of tensions between Kiev and Budapest. Hungary has denounced Ukrainian laws that discriminate against non-Ukrainians in education and in other spheres of public life. Ukraine has claimed that its western neighbor undermines its authority with its outreach policies, including by offering Hungarian citizenship to people in Transcarpathia. And in this article, they show this video of 4 Ukrainian soldiers raiding a coffee shop somewhere in Transcarpathia called Berehov. Yeah, a place that is demographically 48% Hungarian. Some Hungarian media recently reported on claims that the Ukrainian government was conducting mass military mobilization of ethnic Hungarians, using all sorts of tricks to boost military numbers. Hundreds have been signed up, many against their will, to compensate for the loss of manpower in the east. The news outlet Pesti Srachok, I don't know how to say it, claimed. The report said that Kiev is rumored to be planning to get as many as 10,000 people in Transcarpathia to take up arms within months. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky revealed last Sunday that he had ordered the Defense Ministry to boost reserves of manpower to allow for rotation of troops on the front line. Frankly, I cannot tell everything about how the mobilization processes go. They happen, they must happen, and we really need them, he explained. Ukrainian forces reportedly suffered heavy losses in recent weeks. Germany's Federal Intelligence Agency, BND, estimates that Kiev suffered daily fatalities measured in three-digit numbers in the fighting for the key Donbass city of Artyomovsk, or what they call Bakhmut, according to Der Spiegel. Yes, and that is the sad realities of war, my friends. Just because you're an ethnic Hungarian, I mean, you're still part of that country. So, but like I said, I hope they go to the peace negotiation table and resolve the conflict there. Although, considering the nutcases that Zelensky is surrounded by and the orders he takes from his masters in the West, he's not going to do that. Because the people in the politicians who are in the West have no reverse gear. And let's read the Wagner segment here. Having used private contractors like Blackwater for decades, Washington is now concerned about the new household name PMC. And the United States just recently slammed or considered or dubbed the Wagner PMC as a cross-international criminal organization of some sort, which means if any member of the PMC, of the Wagner group, goes to, for example, Thailand or, I don't know, any other country in the world, they can get arrested and extradited, right? So, interference in other countries' affairs via private contractors has long been a staple of U.S. influence operations. Now Washington is trying to accuse Russia of doing the same, and it's suddenly a bad thing. First off, the mark doesn't always win the race. Does anyone remember when BlackBerry mobile devices were everywhere and barely anyone had heard of an iPhone, for example? Well, the U.S. created the BlackBerry of private military security contractors, Blackwater, after decades of outsourcing military and intelligence operations through various front companies. And now they're so preoccupied with the new iPhone equivalent, Russia's Wagner Group, that Washington is tracking its activities, including unconfirmed ops in Ukraine, Syria, across Africa and Serbia, according to cables obtained by Politico. The US government is concerned about the extent of which Wagner is interfering in sovereign countries' internal politics, violating human rights, and robbing them of their mineral wealth, according to a senior administration official cited in the report. Leaving aside Washington's newfound concern for developing countries' sovereignty over their mineral wealth, when that's often the main underlying reason why they're typically targeted by the US for some freedom and democracy through firepower in the first place. It's hard to ignore that the presence of Wagner Group seems to be concentrated in locations already known for being targeted by clandestine US and allied activities. Last year, for example, Mali chose the Wagner Group for a new partnership after kicking out French forces whose efforts to secure the country were so spectacular that there were two coup d'etats in as many years. Wagner Group's possible presence in Serbia is now being widely discussed. The PMC has allegedly established itself in a cultural center in Belgrade. But these claims, initially sourced from a Telegram post, have been denied both by Wagner head Evgeny Prigozhin and Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić, who also recently criticized Serbian-language Wagner recruitment ads that appeared on social media. If these claims do turn out to be true down the line, it sounds like Serbia was looking for some hired help to prevent the country from becoming a flophouse for Western-backed regime change chancellors targeting Moscow and its top ally Belgrade. And the presence of Western private military contractors in Ukraine has been well established, with job offers reportedly popping up right from the outset of the conflict. Wanted, multilingual former soldiers willing to covertly head into Ukraine for the handsome sum of up to $2,000 per day, plus bonus to help rescue families from an increasingly grim conflict, read one. Beyond this covert security role, one would have to be pretty naive to think that under the cover of the fog of war, a little mission creep toward kinetic operations isn't tempting. It was the US government that created the blueprint for modern-day defense contracting when a certain Eric Prince, a son of the car vanity mirror inventor Edgar Prince, one of the Republican Party's top donors at the time and a pal of former US Defense Secretary and later Vice President Dick Cheney, created Blackwater, which went on to obtain lucrative no-bid security contracts for the US government in Iraq, Afghanistan during Washington's global war on terror. The company started to resemble a retirement home for officials and executives from the CIA and the Pentagon, who conveniently slid over to Blackwater to enjoy a lucrative payday. And despite the company developing a cowboy reputation from the incidents like when Blackwater personnel opened fire and killed 14 civilians in Iraq's Nisour Square in 2007, the US private security model has thrived under subsequent US administrations. Blackwater brought to light the kind of covert operations that had been long outsourced by Washington for reasons of plausible deniability. The firm itself created a web of more than 30 shell companies or subsidiaries, in part to obtain millions of dollars in American government contracts. After the security company came under intense criticism for reckless conduct in Iraq, according to the New York Times. The company worked for foreign governments like Jordan to train helicopter pilots with US government funding, trained Canadian Special Forces for 2 years, and worked directly with the CIA in what the New York Times has described as a secret program to track and assassinate senior Al-Qaeda figures. So despite its rather benign seeming official US government contracts for the protection of American personnel in conflict zones, it nonetheless served as a direct extension of Washington's defense, intelligence, and foreign policy interests in the same way as others also funded by the CIA through aid programs. In one such program, dating back to 2010, private contractors were hired with USAID money to execute influence operations in Cuba through the creation of a Twitter-like social media network called Zuneo. The idea was to reel in unsuspecting Cubans through non-controversial content, only to ultimately usher the mob towards civil unrest. At the height of the Cold War, the CIA funded journalists and feminist activist Gloria Steinem's work under the Independent Research Service, a front group that organized international youth festivals with the objective of influencing youth from around the world, presenting a more attractive alternative to Soviet revolutionism. Air America infamously provided a covert front for the CIA and Pentagon to provide critical support for US military and intelligence operations in theaters across the world, ranging from the war in Vietnam to the botched Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba, before being disbanded in 1974. These examples that have made it out into the public domain are just the tip of the iceberg. The real problem with the Wagner Group for the US and its allies is that it competes with Western counterparts and could serve to protect the interests of clients that depart from Western agenda. If the US government has a problem with that now, they might do well to remember that they were the ones who set the particular ball rolling in the first place. Well, they are correct about that, but I have my criticisms of the Wagner Group, and you know, there's a lot of ex-cons in there, not all of them, obviously, and there's nothing wrong with that per se, because, for example, the French Foreign Legionnaire have a lot of ex-cons as well. But there is also a heavy presence, or some presence, of white supremacists in the Wagner PMC too. I'm not saying they are the majority, absolutely not, but there are some people like Dmitry Uchkin, the founder of the PMC. He is said to be an open Nazi. I mean, he has not swastika, but SS bolt lightning tattoos. They also work together with the Rusic battalion, I think, or let's see here. Rusic consists of nationalist Rodnovers, volunteers from Russia and Europe. Yeah, Alexei Milchakov. Yeah, they work with Rusic, right? Which is some sort of task force. And there's a lot of Russian neo-Nazis in there, for example. And there was also a video that leaked out a few years ago, a couple of years ago, where a group of Wagner soldiers had captured a Syrian army deserter, and they tied him up, and I think they killed this guy by using a sledgehammer, and they burned his corpse up, right? I mean, things like that is unfortunately why I don't support PMCs, right? I think like they do things outside of the laws of war, and prosecuting them can sometimes be very hard, right? That doesn't mean that the Wagner PMC isn't professional for the most part. I mean, they've done a lot of professional fighting in Ukraine and in other places. But yeah, and that's the problem with PMCs, basically. Thank you guys for listening. Give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.